Talking with Travis Welsh from the Missoula City Police Department. Travis, and I know that there are lots of cases going on both in the city and the county right now regarding the use of force by police officers and sheriff's deputies. But I wanted to find out just from the Missoula City Police Force, from basically your policies on a general level. At what point do officers are they allowed to use the kind of force that would cause people to be injured or killed?
Well, Peter, every agency has its own policy on use of force. Typically, you might see a use of force continuum where you have kind of a cycle of beginning at the lowest level of force, which might simply be presence, all the way around to a point where an officer makes a decision to use deadly force. In the Missoula Police Department, we are governed by our policy that says that law enforcement officers are authorized to use deadly force to protect the officer or others from what is reasonably believed to be a threat of imminent death or serious bodily harm.
And is that how? Let me ask you this: How are your officers trained to recognize those particular circumstances?
Well, they are all trained in the use of force policy. They're all familiar with the use of force continuum. We've certainly had training in all the tools that we have at our disposal. You know, your typical patrol officer is equipped with what he has on his person or what might be in his car, and you know, typically you might see implements such as pepper spray or a taser, things like that. All of those objects are not just freely worn. They do come with some training behind them. The officers are trained in each one of those implements and know how to apply them and when to apply them. And it's just imperative that they are familiar with not only our use of force policy, but the policies surrounding each one of those tools that they carry everywhere.
Now, at some point, I'm sure that there is continuing training. It isn't just one and you're done, like in the academy. But I'm sure that there is training that goes on. Is it a regular basis, or is it just as circumstances dictate, or are there specific times when you get together to have training?
You know, Peter, we have a program here that we go through daily. It's called briefing training, and it has to do with our policies and procedures. And weekly, each individual squad of officers goes over an identified policy or two to familiarize themselves with that policy. We have regular qualifications on our firearms, and there are minimum standards that officers have to meet on those qualifications. And those kinds of things are ongoing. You know, we qualify, each officer is required to qualify twice a year. They have the opportunity to qualify 3 times a year with firearms. But as far as the other policies, that includes use of force. There's kind of a cycle where it's continuous. We start with number 1 and we go all the way to the end in our policy book. And when we finish, we start back around again. And it's just the reason we do that is so that officers are continually reminded of what our policies say and what their guidelines are.
With the things that have happened in Ferguson, Missouri, and in New York City, and I know that once that happened, then whenever there is an officer involved shooting, either an officer had been injured or an officer had to use their duty weapon, it has now come to the front of the news. I know there was just one today in South Dakota. An officer was injured there. Have these things come up in your training briefings more often now because they're being more closely scrutinized by the public and by the media?
I don't think we've reached the point beyond what we're already doing where we feel it's necessary to do anything more than what we are accomplishing on a weekly basis right now. You know, if the types of things that we are seeing in other parts of the country were happening here more often or on a regular basis, I think you would see that. But at present, it appears that we are doing what we need to do to make sure that our officers are up to speed with the things that we are not only required to do every day, but that we are required to be knowledgeable of.
All right. And one more quick question, Travis, and that is, has your office, has the Missoula Police Department, especially with what recently happened, Have they been criticized or contacted by national groups asking for more information or challenging the Missoula Police Department in any way?
To my knowledge, we have not.